Welcome back to the official podcast of Volunteering Queensland. Each episode, we travel to regional and remote Queensland, where we meet the wonderful people doing their bit to keep their communities alive through volunteering. You're going to love this conversation I had with a volunteer from up north, who I'll just let you know lives at the intersection of 4 schools, so you may hear some school bells and children playing in the background. Most importantly, we'll hear about the important volunteering she's doing and even gain a few fun gardening tips along the way. I hope I'm not the only one who's never heard of a compost lasagna. I am joined today by Laura Fritze-Shanks. She is a volunteer at the Capricorn Conservation Council. Laura, can we start by you telling us a little bit about Capricorn Conservation Council? What does CCC do and what does your role as a volunteer look like?
So CCC engages with the local community to better the environment here in CQ and advocate for the environment here in CQ. What I do as a volunteer for CCC mostly is I've been exploring how we can create a community garden space at the hut where we sort of have our grounds, and managing that project and connecting with council and writing grants to facilitate that opportunity to expand on our volunteer base. We actually get in on the action of making Central Queensland a better place to live and learn over on Konomi Islands, which is just outside of Rocky, and then a boat ride. It's a learning centre over there on the islands, and there's a lot of invasive weeds, so we've been going over there and cleaning up the space, which is really incredible, being able to actually do that hands-on work and see the impact that you are making as a volunteer is the most rewarding thing in the world. And you couldn't pay me to do it because it is such a rewarding feeling that the money would just be like, I can do more now. It wouldn't even be like, yay, shoes and cars or whatever. It would be, I can do more.
Yeah, that makes total sense. It would be very rewarding doing that. You call it rehab work?
Yeah, rehabilitation
Work. And for everyone who's not from Queensland who's listening, CQ stands for Central Queensland, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Great. That's great. So I want to come back to the community gardens, but first of all, it's not just CCC where you volunteer, is it? Where else do you volunteer in the community in your past life and in your current life?
I have volunteered with Central Queensland Suicide Prevention Network as well. That's a big area of interest and kind of why I volunteer with CCC as well, because it's such a concern seeing how the impacts of our environment have on our minds as well as the people that we are around. Our community is affected by the state in which we live. My mum's always harping on, like, you got to make your bed and make yourself feel good about your environment that you're in, and that doesn't affect me anywhere near as much as seeing like litter and crazy volumes of invasive weeds in place of what should be like native trees and everything that actually benefit our environment. It is so rewarding to see native animals come back to the landscape. I've literally got right here, I found this caterpillar on one of my plants.
Oh.
And I could be wrong, and I'm totally happy to be told I'm wrong, but I think it's a sparrowwing butterfly caterpillar.
Okay.
So
yes.
I forgive it for eating my $500 plant, but it's really cool to see this guy come back to the garden now that I've gone in and done some rehabilitation work in my own garden.
Yes, that is amazing.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that experience is something that I really want to push and bring back to, will provide that opportunity for people like myself that feel very strongly about improving the community for themselves and others. So
how did this happen to you? How did you become a person? What are the moments in your childhood or your adult life that have gotten you to live a life of service like this?
I think, honestly, it's probably just in my DNA, it seems to be. My parents have been telling me lots of stories about their parents and their grandparents, and I found out that my great-grandfather was a police officer here in CQ, and when he retired, he found that his meat was being stolen from his refrigerator, or sorry, it's salt fridge or something similar like that, salt box.
Yeah.
And he found out it was his neighbour, and he reported him to the police, and he got taken away. And then he stopped and thought about it and thought, he's probably just trying to feed his family. So he went and bailed him out and took him back home. So I think it's just kind of the way that I am, the way that I think and everything like that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's in your DNA, very much so. And we speak to a lot of people who were raised in families who have been of service themselves. And then it just feels like it's a natural progression when it moves down into the next generation. So you are a mum of two who's really passionate about gardening and the benefits of gardening. And it's led you to this work that you're doing with community gardens. Can you tell us more about that?
I actually also run an organisation myself called Yellow Paint Incorporated, and we have restarted community gardens really in Rockhampton. They kind of stopped existing for a while there because of funding problems and volunteer capacity and all of those things that we kind of see a lot of in volunteering. So I just kind of got onto council and said, I'd like to give it a go. And I've got a group of people that would like to give it a go. So we just worked through the policy and sort of continued to come up with out-of-the-box thinking to tackle those problems and ensure that our garden was a success. And even if we decided, okay, like we're gonna let it go because there's another group that's really passionate, we've set it up so that they have the same success that we had. That's kind of where we're at. And we've got another community garden space. So we did fix up one that was an old community garden. It had a giant pile of tires. It had grass up to your ribs. It was really sad. And a lot of people walked through this space. You could see, even though the grass was this tall, you could see the pathways that people took to go through there. So we've really honoured those pathways because it seemed people still want to walk those exact same pathways that they did. So we've just sort of built the garden around the people that do frequent the space. And we want to provide those opportunities to people to explore the space now that it's not got a giant pile of tyres or anything crazy there. So it's really exciting. We've had barbecues, community barbecues, and we're looking at doing a karaoke day for kids down at the garden. Yeah, it's really exciting.
It's a beautiful community space. You know, you think about town halls or civic centres or, you know, places where people meet and gather, or exhibition halls. And that's great. That's lovely. But being able to meet in a community garden and come together and talk and be really surrounded by nature doing what it does best, which is growing food for us, must just be such a rewarding experience. What else is really important about these places?
Just, I think, being able to step back. You know, one of our volunteers, we'd done a whole heap of work and we were just sort of sitting and having a relaxing time talking. And then she said, guys, I'm just going to go lay down. And I sort of looked at her and was like, okay. And she laid down and she just looked up at the sky. And it was really, really surreal to see her just completely relax and take in the atmosphere that, like you said, it's very unique. And I don't know that there are many other places where you get that. You go to a playground and there's kids running around and screaming and having a great time, but us as adults don't really get that same
no
in those spaces.
It's really special. I do it in the ocean is where I get that moment. If I lay on my back and float, and you can't hear anything, so there's a little bit of sensory deprivation, but I get that feeling. And you're so right, a lot of adults don't do that. So if the community gardens are offering a space for people to have that pure moment of just being able to release, and it's an amazing feeling, isn't it?
It really, really, really is. And even just, you know, the other fact of, like you said, there's food there that it's just growing there. We've cut down bananas before, you know, this big, big hand of bananas. And it is the most beautiful feeling getting there and just peeling a banana straight off and having
and you grew it.
And then being able to be like, oh my gosh, there's people walking down the street. I'm going to go chase them with a hand of bananas. Please eat these. I grew these. Any gardener will tell you that, yeah, they probably would chase after someone with their first produce.
Yeah.
Just to see the, you know, reaction of someone be like, thank you. And, oh my God, this is amazing. It's a banana.
It's a feeling of real pride of being able to feed yourself. It's incredible. I promised our listeners, while we're speaking about this, I promised our listeners that you may have some gardening tips for them, specifically with regard to growing your own food, like we're talking about. Could you possibly give us a few examples of the food that a beginner gardener could grow, and maybe some tips about what conditions they would need in that garden to be successful?
Yeah, definitely. So I go by organic gardening. I really, really enjoy putting scraps into the ground and just kind of being, you get your compost bins and everything, but I just like throwing things straight in the ground and continuing to mulch through that and then plant something. That's just my preferred way. I think the best place to start really is tomatoes. I find it really rewarding because it's something that you do use quite a lot in your cooking. Usually, get a thing of tomato paste and that will do me for several different meals. Spaghetti, who doesn't love spaghetti? It's so rewarding to use your own tomatoes, and they are a very forgiving plant to grow. So yeah, I would do your basic compost just straight in the ground. You can do, what do we call it? Compost lasagna, where you basically do, like I said, straight in, and then cardboard or newspaper or mulch of any form. You could just rake up all your leaves, throw that down. That's your pasta sheet. That's your lasagna, and then more compost. And eventually, in a couple of weeks, that's pretty well good to go. You can mulch it up again if you want, or you can just do a no dig and put your plant straight in. Steaks, definitely put steaks in there, not the meat kind. They just kind of grow, the tomatoes. If you see something wrong, Google it. It really is. There's a lot of answers when there are things wrong, and it's usually a pretty easy fix.
Okay, so a nice sunny spot, or maybe somewhere by the house that's got a bit of shade in the afternoon, or
if you're living here in central Queensland, definitely a little bit of shade for the tomatoes. Yeah, it's usually pretty good. But if you're a bit further down south, yeah, a nice sunny spot is definitely preferred, and lots of water.
Beautiful. I love the compost lasagna.
Yeah.
I'm going to give that a try,
Yeah,
but I'm going to need to cover it up with something so my dog doesn't eat it before the plants have a chance to utilize the nutrients.
Yeah, definitely. Rocks. Just throw a couple of rocks down. That's what I've done. Or cement pads.
Okay.
Sometimes people give away big cement pads go to Bunnings and get some cement. What are those called?
Pavers? Like pavers?
Pavers.
Yeah.
That's the one.
So how long do I need my compost lasagna under a paver until I'm ready to use it?
With your scraps and everything, if you've got, if you want to spend the time and cut your scraps up real small, that's what my mum does because she lives in an apartment. She wants the compost to go quicker.
Yeah.
If you want to do that, you could probably get results in about 2 to 3 weeks.
That is amazing.
But yeah, it would probably be good to go by then. Otherwise, you can put compost in an ice cream container for a couple of days and then put it straight onto the ground or dig it down into the ground. Yeah, and do your lasagna again.
Okay. Let it stew for a couple of days?
Yeah. It kind of comes out. And,
yeah, that makes sense.
It's a really good way to do it if you want to get straight into it.
Please tell your mum thank you for the extra tip. I appreciate her. Awesome. That's lovely. What are your goals for the future, Laura? What are your big goals for the future?
Well, for myself with Yellow Pen Incorporated, we really want to get into sustainable housing. So that would be, to me, it looks like rehabilitating land similar to what we do with CCC, and then putting a removable dwelling on there that can house someone that really needs to be in a safer environment and get that opportunity similar to the community garden where you can lay down on the ground and just go. So that's definitely our big future goal. We have another community garden space starting up in Coongal, which is in Rocky here again. And we're also helping, like I said, CCC with a community garden over the south side of Rockhampton. So I'm really looking forward to those two things future-wise, being able to take my 2 kids to the gardens and have those moments of I'm laying down and getting my bliss and they're running around having a great time in the sprinklers and the garden is loving it as well. So, yeah.
That's a beautiful goal. I think there's a lot of people who do need a safe place, somewhere safe to rest their head. So looking at that type of housing is such an amazing goal to have. What are you most proud of as a volunteer?
Honestly, seeing other people get up and follow my antics and do the volunteering. I think it has been really incredible to see just the extent that some people will go to, even just as people meeting other volunteers. So, for example, at the community garden, we had a lady walk through, and our garden manager at the time, CJ, he has done so much work to this space that this woman couldn't even stop looking around and saying, "This is the same space. You haven't come in here and knocked any trees down. You've just brought it back to life." And this woman was so impressed by all of his work that she asked, what do you need to keep going and do more of this and bring more people in to experience how successful you've been? And he said, "We need toilets." And she asked, how much do you need for toilets? And he told her, and she came back with $1,500 in an envelope.
Oh my gosh. How incredible.
Those moments are just entirely surreal. You don't even have to be a volunteer and get in and do all of the work. But doing those things enables us volunteers to get up the next day and go, "I am so excited to see what's going to happen next."
What would be your advice to people who are thinking about volunteering but maybe aren't sure or don't understand very much about how it works?
Get in and ask someone who is volunteering. Find what you're super interested in or want to learn, and find an organisation that does that and just go along. Don't you can throw yourself in the deep end. I like to throw myself in the deep end. It's good fun. But suss it all out and find which organisation does what sparks joy with you. Give it a go. Give everything a go.
It's been such a pleasure to talk to you today, Laura. Thank you for being the person that you are and doing all the things that you do. I can't tell you how grateful I am for the work that you're doing. And I'm sure that there are so many people out there benefiting from your work who I'm speaking on behalf of. Mm-hmm. You're so welcome. A huge thank you to Laura and all the team from the Capricorn Conservation Council. For more information, head straight to the Volunteer Queensland website to learn more about how you could find a volunteer role at the perfect organisation for you. If you've loved listening today and want to help us reach a larger audience, please subscribe or follow our podcast. And if you want to help even more, please leave a review for us.